Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody. My name is Joanna Post, and today I will speak on how the GEO community can support the FCCC and the Paris Agreement. This is me. I'm a Program Management Officer at the UNFCCC Secretariat, leading all of the work on research and systematic observation, as well as focal point on ocean and climate change. Today, I'd like to speak, I'll give a quick overview of the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement, and then speak a little bit more about how GEO can support countries on mitigation and adaptation and support the global stocktake. Systematic observations are the foundation of the convention. They're mentioned in the commitments, and there's a specific article, Article 5, looking specifically at research and systematic observation, encouraging parties to promote and cooperate, support and strengthen, and improve capacity for systematic observation, particularly in developing countries. Earth observation plays a key role in addressing climate change and as a foundation to the work of the FCCC through a value chain, which includes observations, research, and IPCC assessments. The products of this value chain support the action by parties under the convention, as well as the decision-making under the convention. The data and information for action, including on adaptation, mitigation, and on reporting, can be better optimized through climate services. So we see GEO as a key partner in all of this support. The 2015 Paris Agreement is a legally binding international climate change treaty founded in 2015 with the ultimate goal to limit global warming to less than 2 degrees C, ideally 1.5 degrees C by the end of this century. Nationally determined contributions are a key part of this agreement, and parties in 2020 are due to provide their updated or renewed nationally determined contributions, which will officially kick off the Paris Agreement cycle, which is shown here. So these nationally determined contributions show the intention at national level. Then the action taken will be provided in reports. There will be a global stocktake at the international level every 5 years, starting in 23, which provides recommendations leading to increased ambition and revision of NDCs. So how can GEO support countries on their long-term progress on mitigation and adaptation? Well, it's hugely important to increase the capability of developing countries, particularly to implement mitigation and adaptation action. Some of the ways GEO is already working on this, which could and has the opportunity to continue that great engagement, is to refine tools and methods to increase the quality and decrease uncertainty on mitigation, particularly on enhancing parties' inventories, also on supporting the identification of emission hotspots and other opportunities for reducing emissions. On the adaptation side, there's opportunities to identify indicators to provide other climate services that can support not just adaptation assessment, but monitoring, also looking at long-term progress. And these indicators and other services can be incorporated into the adaptation reporting cycle under the FCCC. GEO, I know, is doing a lot of work on capacity and trying to build capacity, and this is hugely important to bring the data and the information in a usable way to those that need it, and to support countries' capabilities for action, to support technology capacity building and access to finance. And GEO is working in a lot of these ways, and that's super exciting. There's a huge range of multilateral agreements. This is quite and there's a lot of synergy there which needs to be improved. We work closely actually with colleagues across the UN, but those providing information to parties, to stakeholders that are using this information, have to also be aware of this. So that's actually a role I think that GEO has a huge capacity to play. Case studies are extremely important to make people aware of what's the opportunities, what's available, how can data and observation information and the services be used, and how can they be used to the sort of scientific support of action. That is really an opportunity I think that GEO can provide in as well. And then of course reporting back to the subsidiary body for scientific and technological advice under the FCCC, which is the body that deals with scientific information is extremely important, and we have a modality to do this at every COP. There's now a Earth Information Day, which provides an opportunity for colleagues from the observation community to report back on actions, on opportunities, on data gaps under the convention. I want to talk a little bit about the Global Stocktake. Now, the first Global Stocktake is in 23. This is actually before the first set of transparency reports come from the Paris Agreement. There's a lot of information that's coming in and a lot of discussions about how it's going to work, and it is a learning by doing exercise. But it has a very clear process. So there will be an information collection and preparation phase. There's a joint contact group being set up under the SBSTA SBI, and there's a range of sources for input being identified by parties, constituted bodies, UN organizations, IPCC, and so on. Now that will take place starting actually next year. Then the information collection will sort of overlap with a technical assessment phase, which really is a technical dialogue, which will be guided by two co-facilitators. They will take place at the SB sessions over 22-23. And then all of this will feed into the consideration of outputs at the COP in 2023. The SB chairs have been invited to provide guiding questions for every phase of the Global Stocktake, and this will guide the sort of considerations and discussions at those phases. The Stocktake takes place, if you like, in terms of themes. So the way the information will be discussed and considered is in a thematic way, considering mitigation, adaptation, finance flows, efforts on response measures and loss and damage, and of course inputs on equity. And the systematic observation community has a huge role, and one of the things that we would like to discuss and work with GEO closely on is a suggestion for an ad hoc working group on systematic observation collective progress to support the Global Stocktake. We would suggest that the systematic observation community has a huge opportunity to really bring information to the Global Stocktake in a coordinated way, and encourage you to work together towards that. So to think about putting together a working group to bring together or discuss what could be provided under the themes that we've already mentioned in terms of a structured work program, and that could then be converted into a synthesis report that could be an input into the Global Stocktake, a sort of consolidated contribution from the systematic observation community, if you like. So there will be obviously guiding questions, but we can already think a little bit thematically in terms of where are we, where do we want to go, and how we get there. So where are we? So this input into the Global Stocktake, if you like, would be, where are we already? So how are countries already using systematic observations? How is the systematic observation community providing support to countries? Where are the sources of information? Where's the go-to place that's really useful, and what are already the case studies that could be identified? Then there's the where we want to go. What is the optimum? Where do we want to be by the next Global Stocktake, for example? Whether that be, a certain number of countries using observations for their GHG inventories, which are mostly from statistics agencies now, a certain number or supporting developing countries use EU information for their adaptation, and so on, or a certain number of projects or a certain area of sectors. These are all things that are open but worth considering. We want full implementation also of the GCOS implementation plan. And then how do we get there? Data access is an issue. GEO initiatives are doing a lot of work through capacity building. These are some of the things that I think could be considered in terms of an input into the Global Stocktake. Really, the support at a party level, if you like, under the Unfccc, the opportunity to support parties' actions. And then, as I've mentioned, there's an opportunity to support at a global level under the Global Stocktake and support inputs into the actual convention itself. And I really look forward to working with the GEO community, including through the new climate change working group. And I look forward to engaging with you perhaps in person in the future. And I wish you very well, and thank you very much for your attention.